We have all reached out of Africa, going into Europe, going into Asia, going into South America, going into North America, going into Australia, right? And when we got to these continents, we brought with us our cultures, our identities, our language at that time, our civility, our creativity, our imagination, our rituals, our visuals, of our patterns of how we saw ourselves, which is going into knowing, how and being. So how we made sense of our knowing, how we understood our being, we all brought with us. And then nature and nurture over time. Here's the third point. Over time, our bodies began to slightly change. It's not to the degree that white Euro scholars say. I don't agree with that. It changed. Nature and nurture, it changed based upon the environment, the weather conditions. Yes, that has an impact, nature and nurture, right? So how our ancestors lived, where they lived, what they ate, what they experienced in their lives affected their genetics over time. So yes, that's what I mean by evolution of society, evolution of civilization, evolution of how we evolved, how we change. Evolution is changes over time. How we evolved into our status before colonization, right? So the next step would be the third step, or maybe the fourth step, excuse me, is understanding how we existed during slavery, what happened, right? During the transatlantic slave trade, during the trans-Sahara slave trade, and then during the Silk Road slave trade, all the things that have happened to us while we were being shaped by white Euro genetical people. What happened to us? The conditions, what conditions were we under? What atrocities that have happened to us? What was robbed from us? What was taken from us? What was imputed unto us? What was added unto us? What was given unto us? And then the fifth step is to figure out who we are today. Why are we who we are today? And how do we reconnect? As here's a term that's in my hypothesis, first humans. How do we reconnect to who we were, who we are, so we can be who we will be, right? Because we all are descendants from first humans. So the mother of us all completely is to be able to bring us to an understanding that though we are different in our cultures, our ethnicities, and how we see each other today, we can still relate to each other. We still can have overlapping. We still can have intersectionality. We still can have community in our diversity. And to know that our genetics is not too far different than what we were told. So that's the purpose of Mother of Us All.
I see, but let us step back a bit and then go to the lighter part, because that got deep, really. So, you've talked about culture and how all of us have different cultures from where we came from, and from a perspective of Asian, we really we are mesmerized in awe of the culture of the other side of the world, because we're from a third world country. So we're really curious about what the first world country looks like. We really like to dive in your culture trends. So I really want to ask you, before you relocate here in the Philippines, what's your perspective of us Asians?
Perspective. Okay, so I'm going to answer it because you're asking me a question that's similar but from a different face. So you asked me before, how did I think of Asians? Now you're asking me what's my perspective of Asians
before
before
relocate.
relocating here, right? And I'm gonna say this. So I'm taking this question as, maybe you can clarify if I got it right or not. But I take it as from a child until I relocated here. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes, yes.
So I figured that you were talking about from a different face. So when I was a kid, I thought every Asian was Chinese.
I suspected. That's like the biggest stereotypes of us Asians, that like there's only three countries in Asia: the Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, the East Asians.
I didn't even believe in that when I was a kid. Because I didn't know nothing about that. As a kid, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old, all I thought about was Asia was what was presented to me at the time. But when I mean by as a kid, I'm thinking, my mind is going back to when I'm like 7 or 8, okay? So at 7 or 8, I'm thinking of Asia. The only thing I know really about what Asia is. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay, let me say this, right? In my family, we have a lot of Asian novelty. Chinese calendar, Chinese astrology, pictures. So the Black American community has this is what is not really said. The Black American community has always had a certain type of appreciation for Asian cultures. Despite what you see on the news and television, despite what you hear from other people who are not from America, despite of what other people may say on social media, I'm telling you, from what the people I grew up around, the Black Americans I grew up around, always had a appreciation for Asian people. Okay, so what I'm about to say, or what I'm saying, is I hope it's taken in a good light, and not as me speaking ill will of anybody. That's not the intent. That's not where my mind is at. Okay, so when I thought of Asians when I was 7 years old, was everyone's Chinese, everyone does backflips, everyone does cartwheels, everyone does kicks, splits, everyone knows how to sword fight, everyone use chopsticks, everyone eats rice. Well, the rice might be true. You have to tell me, but yeah, but everybody, is that. So that's what I thought when I was a kid.
Well, it's only fair because, as from someone from Asia, we really see the western part of the world as only one race only. Also, we only think of Canucks, like all of the westerners are Americans. That's what we see before, because we grew up in sitcoms, in movies that talk about only one country on the other side of the world. And I grew up watching like there's this intense segregation there in Western countries, like only Asian people are friends with each other, like some Asians and other race get like outcasted like that. So it's kind of fair to see each other in that light, because we don't know any better before. But I'm really curious now that you've been here for 3 years. What's like the biggest like misconception that you've like encountered? Like before going here, you believe that, but now that you're here, it's not like that totally.
I'm gonna answer this, and you may be mad.
It's fine.
Okay, I mean, no disrespect. Okay, so prior to moving to Asia, as I became an adult, I've learned a lot about Asian cultures, Asian people groups, nationalities, ethnicities, so forth, so forth, so forth, and so on. Okay, all the souls, right? When I moved to Asia, I had the concept that all Asians are brilliantly intelligent, smart, knows all the mathematical equations, are scientists, or chemists. All Asians are just gifted in just intelligence and wisdom and all of that. When I moved here, though, I was like, I don't think that's accurate. Who are these Asians that come into America? And that left me. I mean, because I reflect back to when I was younger, and a culture shock that I had was everybody. When I was younger, I thought everyone was brilliant, smart, educated, doctors, lawyers, chemists, all that stuff. Then once I moved out here, the culture shock was, oh, it's not that. So then I began to go back in my mind and say, did I really believe Asians were like that, or did I just go with what I was told? So then I started thinking back, and no disrespect, but the Asians I remember seeing growing up, to think about it again, I'm like, nah, I ain't the smartest person in the world, but I think I had a little bit more catch than them. But I didn't really, because I was going along with what the American culture said about Asians. I allowed that model minority stereotype of Asians guide my thinking of Asians versus allowing my experience to get. So basically, the reputation of American Asians was forced on everyone to believe said thing, versus looking at the American Asians as they really are. I didn't make that difference completely. Now, in my subconscious, I did, because I can go back and think and recall. But in the moment, I didn't allow my conscious mind to divide the perception of what preceded American Asians.